Nick, welcome to the Job Toast podcast, where we're going to have Fortune 500 people come on and talk about their career and their experiences, and learn from the best to help the audience. So, Nick, welcome on.
Hey David, yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yep. So I see you work at Dell. We went to SMU together. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. So we could start from the top with SMU. So you went to SMU, and what was your major at the college?
So I majored in business management, but really was like interested in entrepreneurship. So I actually had a concentration in entrepreneurship and kind of, really leaned in with that. But yeah, just my basic major was management.
Yeah, super cool. So it was a good experience at SMU.
It was a good experience just, getting to meet different people. I mean, Dallas is a huge business hub, especially in Texas, and I feel like SMU was kind of the culmination of, a bunch of people all around both Dallas and Texas alone coming together, and especially the business school there. I mean, it's really, really state of the art. I mean, they're just doing renovations. I mean, more and more people are applying, and it was just a really good place to, learn and really hone some of those business skills that I wanted to develop coming in. And like just being in a job right now, there's so many things that I've learned like through SMU and through Cox that have just been able to propel me.
Yeah. So we can get right to your job experiences. So I see that in 2019 you had a high school marketing internship. So that's pretty cool because I haven't seen a lot of people, having like a good internship in high school. So can you kind of walk me through that? What'd you do and some of the good experiences you had there?
Yeah, so that one was actually like set up through my high school. I was fortunate enough to, go to a high school that had like some good connections. And what they did was you basically had a week-long internship and got to choose from various companies around, the Austin area. And living so close to Dell and being interested in marketing at the time, I was like, hey, let's might as well go do it. So like me and a couple other students from various schools across Austin, we all got together and basically they gave us like this project to work on. And our job was to essentially take one of Dell's product lines, which for us at the time it was the Alienware product line, which for those who don't know is kind of their gaming high end, high processing power laptops. And our job was, hey, we're going to take and find some of these market analytics that obviously were presented to us. And we had to go to, whoever was running the internship and present our findings and our recommendations. And at the time, being a high schooler, you don't really think about what you want to do. I mean, I sure didn't. I was just focused on, where I was going to go to college and, what was going on the next football game or whatnot. But I think just like having that experience really kind of opened my eyes up to, oh man, like even though it's, you know, 4 years away, this is essentially what I'm going to be doing in later in my life. And kind of, you know, I think it gave me an appreciation and kind of led me to choosing my career path as being like doing something at a big company.
Yeah. Yeah, super cool. So any good experiences, any good stories from your time with Dell in high school?
Man, it was such a long time ago. I'm trying to think right now. I mean, besides just like the memories of, I can't even remember. It's so long ago. I mean, it's,
Yeah,
it's like
years ago.
5 years.
Yeah.
The thing was there were about two kids from my school, it was me and another kid, and we'd always, joke around because there were four kids from the rival school that we, had a pretty good rivalry with at our school. So of course our recommendations were like the exact opposite, and that was just kind of funny trying to like hash it out like, no, we know what we're doing and we're all high
Mhm.
schoolers, we have no experience at all.
Yeah.
But no, it was a good time.
Yeah, super cool. So, as we were talking about entrepreneurship, so I see that you founded a company called Screenwise and worked on it for 2 years. So, obviously with everything I'm doing at Job Toast, this is super interesting to me. So kind of walk me through Screenwise and what it do and, tell me a lot about it.
Yeah, so Screenwise was something that, or a company that me and one of my partners founded back in 2019. And basically, what it was a software for learning and education purposes. And what we did was basically we hired somebody to come in and code high school curriculum into almost a gamified learning tool. That way, when kids would be on their, devices and heads down at the table, instead of, doing useless things such as like watching YouTube videos or playing games, our program would pop up and it would have the actual curriculum that teachers were teaching in their classes. So kids were, thinking they were playing games and they were learning almost like a leapfrog kind of. And then
Mhm.
the actual results would go back to the teachers, and they would be able to, see, okay, little Timmy needs to do better on his reading based on this little game. So yeah, we were able to start that. Unfortunately, I mean, just coming into college, we started in 2019, and I mean, went to about halfway through college, and then ultimately we fell off. But it was a really good experience. We were able to pitch at the student startup competition for South by Southwest in Austin, and also we got to pitch at Google's, student pitch competition. So a lot of good exposure, and yeah, it really just taught us, what it was like to start a company from a very base level, of course.
Yeah, I say this, I feel like every podcast, but I feel like entrepreneurship really does give you a lot of experience in like corporate land where, as you could probably know better than me, I was talking with Sean, who worked at Pinterest, who you know as well through basketball. And like entrepreneurship, the skills you have to learn being your own founder really does kind of guide you through a lot of things you're going to learn in corporate, which I'm sure you can touch on. But the sales, the marketing, you're managing everything, you're wearing every hat. So I feel like those skills are so transferable. So do you think that the stuff you did with Screenwise helped out a lot with Dell?
Oh yeah. I mean, there was so many times where, something would come up at Dell and I just think back to my moment in Screenwise, and even if it wasn't, the exact same learning point, or even if I had made a mistake earlier, it gave me a touch point to refer back to and say, "Oh, I've been in a similar situation before. How did I handle it then, and how can I move forward and help make that experience help me handle this situation now?" And I mean, David, I mean, entrepreneurship, you got to know everything. You don't, or not know everything, but you essentially have to do everything unless you have partners or whatnot. You got to market, you got to handle your finances, you got to sell, you got to do all of it. So I think it's like a jack of all trades in terms of like starting your own company, but that also helps later on because regardless of whether you think it or not, once you enter corporate, whether you're given a project or given ownership of, let's say a dashboard in finance land, you have to think of it almost like, a company, or almost like you're an entrepreneur of it. You own it, and how are you going to, better it and grow it to where it's, fruitful for not only yourself and not only the company, but, everybody who uses it.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, super cool. And so for the Nautical Boat Club, see that you were a customer service representative. So kind of tell me about that and tell me about your experiences working for them.
Yeah, so that was actually one of the funnest jobs I ever had. Basically, during COVID, when everything was locked down, I decided, hey, let's try and do something. So applied and got into this dock hand situation at a boat club down by Lake Travis, and it was a great time. It was definitely a bit of a change from sitting at a desk or planning out at home. Oh, what am I going to do with this, or how am I going to plan out my company? How am I going to make this report better? It was like this was more of a customer facing, definitely a good experience to be able to communicate with people just every day. Like, hey, how's your day going? Like, good to see you. I see you're signed up for boat number 12. And it's so weird because like some of the relationships you make from the boat dock that you would never like think you'd like look back 2 years, you meet them on a boat, and now you're connected on LinkedIn and working at the same company. So
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting, but it was a good time. It was definitely, um, an experience that was kind of interesting just with COVID and everything happening. And I thought it was like a really good way to spend a summer that otherwise would have been spent, at home doing nothing.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds so similar to what I was talking about with Ethan, where he was kind of talking about, like I see his star-studded resume has got, he worked for, I think at the mall, he worked at like Creed Cologne, and he was kind of relating it back to how it helped him in like his corporate venture and everything like that. And so, he was telling that, just being so client-facing and talking to people every single day, yes, it's not technically, you're not working at Dell, you're not working at corporate, you're not in the finance realm, but being involved with like the clients every single day helps so much with what you have to do in corporate. So do you see any of that kind of the skills that what you wouldn't think you would learn at that experience has transferred over to corporate as well?
Yeah, I think definitely the biggest skill for me, and I'm sure Ethan can relate just with his experience, is you know, especially when you're like talking to customers and talking to people about, expressing whether it's your company, another person's company, or even just day to day, you can't like take things too personally. And that's something that took me a long while to, figure out was I would reach out and kind of have questions or, just have something that you want to talk about with somebody or something that you want to know. And most of the time people are so nice, they'll like come up and essentially take time out of their day and tell you what's going on, but sometimes they won't, or sometimes you won't get the answer you want. And at first it definitely took a while to just be like, man, like what did I do wrong, what's wrong with me? And it's just knowing that you know everyone's wired differently, and uh you really just gotta take what you learn, or take the learning experience and move on. I mean, for at least for me, I like talking to people. I'm very like sociable. So when someone is not, enjoying the conversation we're having, I'm like, what am I doing wrong? But no, it definitely helped me just kind of get over and be like, all right, just because when you talk to people, not everyone's going to reciprocate the same way, and that's not on you. That's just how life goes. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we could talk about your undergraduate marketing internship. I could see with Rev Energy Gum. So kind of run me through that again. So what did you do, and also like how was the experience there, and just kind of give me a brief overview of that.
Yeah. So, Rev Gum is actually a startup that was based in Austin, and their whole, company was centered around caffeinated gum that would be a replacement for these really high sugar energy drinks, such as like Red Bull and stuff like that. I will say, I shout out Annie Flowers. She was the one who got me that internship, and it was very helpful and such a good time there. But basically, what I did was I would take the merchandise, whether that would be, the actual product itself, or, let's say t-shirts, or, koozies or stuff like that. And I'd basically, go and do market research. I'd go to a bunch of different locations and make sure, one, the stock was, on hand and they had it at the stores. And I would ask them, "Hey, like, how is this selling? Do you have any data that we could take back that we could, better position this product, whether it was, placements on the shelves, or, certain areas around Texas." That was basically what I did, just going out, collecting that market data and that market research, and coming back. And uh, since then, they've grown exponentially. They're like one of the main products in a lot of like gas stations, such as like Sefco, 7-Eleven, all across Texas. They're expanding to, other areas outside of Texas. So that was just a really good opportunity to kind of see a little bit of a later stage startup, because they had, invest in, or they had investors who had already, put money down, and they had like a viable product that was selling really well. So that was a very interesting opportunity for me to kind of go in and see, wow, this is what happens when everything goes right. And it was a great experience. Really fortunate to be a part of that.
Undergraduate supply chain intern. So for Dell, this is a little later stage of an internship. So kind of walk me through what you did there and some of the lessons and stuff you learned while working at Dell that year.
Yeah. So again, just, switching it up, went back to Dell for a supply chain internship. And this was a fully remote internship. So I was in Dallas basically the whole time. This was kind of at the end of COVID, when, a lot of companies were still trying to mitigate the return to office. So um, me and my team were fully virtual, which was definitely an experience. I definitely prefer myself to be in somewhat of a hybrid work cycle. But what we did on this internship was essentially taking data from past supply chain operations, whether that would be, you know, the amount of intake we have for a certain product, or, what we're selling it for. And we basically forecasted that out and figured out, oh, okay, we're planning on, this happening during this quarter, this happening during that quarter. And then we, over the course of internship, compiled that data and presented it to leadership, and was able to, depict a picture for what the next, couple years would look like in terms of supply and demand, and how it would impact Dell's supply chain, really. So it was a good internship. I had a great time. and definitely was the reason that I decided to come back, was because I wanted to learn more about, how complex Dell is, both in their supply chain and their finance, and, really as a company as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you, I see you have some like internship experience from high school with Dell, and you started working there for that internship, and then obviously came back to return more full time for
Mhm.
where you are now. And so, have you always had interest in Dell? What's your connection to it? Also, kind of like how would you, recommend other people land jobs at companies like Dell? I kind of want to walk through a little bit through the application, job search process for, for Dell, and also your advice to other people looking into companies like that.
Yeah. So I think the real big reason that Dell really jumped out to me was because just growing up in the Austin area, it's so prevalent. Like, you always meet people who either work at Dell or live somewhat close to Dell. And with it being, a Fortune 100 company, and, with the CEO being Michael Dell, who went to UT, it's kind of ingrained in the culture of Austin, is like, you know, Dell's one of the good spots to be at, and it's like it's always been here since Austin really started booming. Dell's been kind of almost one of the faces in terms of corporate Austin. So, really, just growing up, I was always surrounded by people who worked there, and, a lot of the technology was, in our classrooms, and, just even on the football field, you see people with like monitors and stuff, and it'd be Dell. So I always saw that and found that pretty interesting. So that's kind of how I got started in it. I will say, just like with the high school internship, that was more of them reaching out to us and, offering, hey, this is a unique experience. Why don't you come join us? And that's what I did. But
Hmm.
later on, during like the college years, it was definitely, reaching out to those connections that I had made through that internship, and also reaching out to some of those other connections, whether that be the ones that I made at SMU, who had people that they knew at Dell, or whether that be just on LinkedIn, seeing people that I had known that had gone to Dell and wanted to hear their experience. So I would just reach out and, set up calls for 30 minutes. And after about 3 or 4 interviews with people, there seemed to be one thing that was really, important, and one common theme, and that was like the culture surrounding Dell. They see it as just one big family. I mean, it's everybody who works there loves it. Everyone is like happy. You never see anybody who's like down in the dumps about working at Dell. It's so super inclusive, and, people are always, moving ladder. You can change what you want to do. And it's just a great place to, be at any point in your career, whether that's like just starting off like me, or, you know ending it out, or, just I know tons of people who have done like 20 years at Dell, and like say it's the best time of their lives, and that they've had met and made some of the most lasting relationships at the company. So after I heard that, I was really sucked in, and was like, hey, yeah, this is definitely a great place to start my career.
Yeah. I think that's super important because I've seen so many resumes at this point where you see even guys older than me where they're always jumping between different companies. And I think it's so rare to see someone stick out 20 years, 15 years, even 10 years, 5 years plus at one specific company. And so if you're saying that most people you're seeing can stay at Dell for 20 years, 15 years, whatever, that's like super important. That just says a lot about their culture and what they're accomplishing over at Dell. So I didn't even know
Yeah.
that about Dell. He went to UT. Is the headquarters in Austin?
It's just north of Austin, in a town called Round Rock. But yeah, he actually went to UT, and there you can still go to like see the dorm where he built his first, PC, which is like crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So, what would you say is the importance of networking with landing jobs? So, I know you kind of talked about the main strategy you used for Dell was to kind of get on calls with people through LinkedIn or whatnot and just talk to them through that. So, do you think networking is a huge part of landing jobs? And if so, like, how much of a role does it play?
I think networking is, well, depending on what kind of industry you want to go into. For me, I knew I wanted to go into, a kind of highly innovative industry, which is tech. And for that, it's all about who do you know and how do you leverage those connections. And, some people might ask, like, how do you make those connections? And for me, it's like there's two ways that that really happens, and that's, whether you're school or work, you're going to be like connecting with people. You're going to be just, just chatting, like, hey, do you know so and so? If so, blah blah blah, can you put me in contact. I'd love to learn more about them. And it only takes like a 30-minute conversation to really get a good understanding for, where someone's been in their career and what they've done and what their interests are. And on the other side of that is, I like to do things outside of work. I'd either sports related like basketball, or I'd go to a restaurant. And sometimes, when you bump into someone random, it's like a 15-20 minute conversation. You find out they work at the same company as you, and there's a connection that you just made. So I think it's incredibly important. I've been taught and always, just through my connections, that it's always important to have a wide breadth of like friends and connections that you can leverage later on. But not only that, that you can help them later on. You can't think about it like, I need to leverage this person per se. It's when you make a connection, or when meet someone new, it's almost like, hey, this is a new opportunity to get to know someone and know their story. And usually their story um, is, pretty interesting and can really help you understand, where they come from. And I mean, if you're really interested and get to know someone really nice or really good, then you know, it can turn into a relationship that you can definitely learn more from down the road.
Yeah, I mean, look at us. I mean, we played basketball, no intention to do anything
I
together, and
know.
now we're on a podcast together. So, I mean, that's my one advice from my understanding, is that people look at networking as it's like this transactional thing that people do with each other. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go make a connection and not really treat them like a human. So I always say, like, put the human connection first. Like, remember that they're a person. And the truth is, you never know who it is that you're gonna bump into, as you said, that's gonna be the next person you work with, people you hire, whatever. So I mean, it could be the person in your class, could be the person got your friend knows or whatever. So just remembering they're people first. And I like what you said, that you never really know who it is that you're going to end up working with in the future. And so I kind of always keeping an eye open for you know what's another good friend I should make or who I should talk to, and just remembering that they're people. So
Right.
I definitely agree with everything you're saying. Yeah,
Cool. But
and
yeah,
so
oh, go ahead,
yeah,
David.
you're good. What are you saying?
I was just gonna say that, in terms of the whole relationship stuff, if you like establish a connection, you really have to, keep up. Even if that doesn't necessarily mean like a 30-minute conversation, but every once in a while, it's like a check-in is nice. And if you keep doing that and you keep, building lasting relationships, people are going to be so much more willing to stick their neck out and like mention, hey, like I I saw David the other day. He'd be a great fit for this role. And if you just keep like maintaining those relationships, I mean, really, people will be willing to do a lot for you. So that's like one thing that has really, helped me, is just maintaining some of those lasting relationships. And so they'll be able to, help you out down the road. And I had no idea when I'd first met them. I just was interested in making a new friend or a new connection. So
Yeah. Yeah, super good point. So let's talk about now where you are now. So you're at Dell, Austin, as we talked about, doing the finance program. So kind of run through what you're doing there, the day to days. We can kind of get into some of the experience you've had there.
yeah. So yeah, based in Round Rock, I'm in a program that's called the Finance Development Program. And basically, how it works is we have 4 semesters, and each semester is 6 months long. And during each semester, they put you in a finance specific job function. And through that job function, you learn, the processes, how to navigate the corporate structure, and you essentially perform that job's functions for 6 months. And then you move to another role and learn it all over again, and to another role. And you do that for 4 semesters, and it really gives you, at least from what I've seen so far, a good perspective of not only just like one super nitty gritty part of the company, but also like I just bounced from the civ side to the federal side. So that's been like a huge transition for me. It's a lot of learning, but I mean, I don't know where else I would have been able to get, 2 different experiences in such little time. So I've
Yeah.
really enjoyed it so far, and it's been a great experience.
Yeah. So what stage of the game are you at right now? Which semester you're on, the second one?
So yeah, I just started my second semester, and the first semester was really good. I was in a pricing role, so I was communicating a lot translaterally with like sales groups, also working with our back end finance groups, and it was really good. I liked it a lot, and the the only thing that might be a little bit difficult and was difficult for me was coming into a company. There's like so many things that even just the way they talk, acronyms, the lingo they use, it's all definitely like a big experience, and you just got to learn while on your feet. And it's definitely a lot different than when you're in college, when everything's like laid out in front of you and you just have to, okay, I learned this and then I regurgitate it on a test or something like that. This is actually like you're learning to apply it to a real, function that's going to be used. So I've enjoyed it so far, but I'm pretty new in the process, just starting my second semester. And we'll see how it goes, but so far it's going great.
Yeah, I was talking with another guy in finance for one of the episodes, and he was saying the jargon and just like all the acronyms you have to learn is some of the biggest learning curves, especially in finance. There's a thousand different things to know. I mean, I know like EODs end of day. I know there's that's more of the basic ones, but I know there's a bunch that you have to learn. It's probably, would you say it's one of the biggest learning curves, just picking up on all the language and everything?
That one is more of just, it's company specific. Dell has a lot of
Yeah.
acronyms, so for me, it's like, oh
Hmm.
my gosh, what does this mean? But the only way to learn it is like we have like a huge glossary that we go to, or you can just ask anybody. That's not like it's a secret; they're gonna tell you.
Hmm.
The biggest
Yeah.
learning, the biggest learning curve for me, especially not being like a traditional finance person, was really learning how to navigate within, the corporate like structure, because it's a lot different than, setting up connections and whatnot, because you actually work with these people. You see them every day. Your performance reflects really heavily on your brand as an individual. So if you do good and, you communicate and your team works well, you're going to have a great time. But if you're, not doing up to the expectations of the peers that you're working with, it can be a little bit of a struggle. But no, it's definitely the learning curve is definitely there. But as long as you really lock in, pay attention, it really only takes a couple weeks until you get the hang of things, and then it's about, okay, how do I do it better?
Hmm. Yeah. So, towards the end of the podcast, I always ask what's like your future and, short term and long term goals. So I'd like to ask you, I think, your short term goals are most likely, I'd say, within the year, obviously, to finish the program and whatnot. But short term, let's say like 3 to 5 years, what would you say your short term goals would be for yourself and your career?
Yeah. I would say just definitely short-term goal, be at the top of the class for graduating FDPs, finance development program. Just that way you can open up your opportunities for after you graduate the program. I'd love to enter a new function of Dell that I hadn't earlier, such as like investor relations. I always think that's like super cool how, a big company deals with its investors. And then, yeah, just for, I'm trying to think like 3 to 5 years. Wow. Probably come up closer than or sooner than expected. But, I would say just like the big thing that I want to do is I want to get in a spot where I can lead a team. I mean, just playing sports. I mean, I've had very little leadership, or not little, but I haven't had leadership in a space that's like a corporate setting where I'm
Hmm.
like helping others achieve, a common goal that we can all like benefit off of. So I definitely want to be in some sort of leadership or management position. That way I can, kind of help teach others what I've learned. And not only that, but like have, almost like a team aspect. Always loved like team sports and stuff like that. I mean, playing basketball together, it's a fun time. So I definitely think in the next 3 to 5 years, that's like really my big goal would be to, become part of a team and almost, if not lead it, be one of the top contributors.
Yeah. So now let's talk long term goals, which is probably one of the hardest questions to answer, right? But what would you say your long term career goals are? Let's say 10, 25 years or whatever. Even if you've thought about it by the time your career is over, what do you think you want to have accomplished?
Yeah. So for long-term goals, I've always, had a love for entrepreneurship. Really love, coming up with an idea that even if no one's thought about it before, something, innovative or something that, might be a little bit different than what's out there, and then coming together and creating that and creating something from just an idea in your mind. So I think at the end, my long-term goals would really be to, whether that's still at Dell or entrepreneurial wise, um, I'd love to create something, whether that's like an actual product or a software or a service that is centered around finance, or maybe the connection between finance and sales.
So, we went through all your experiences. Now I know your future goals and everything like that. Is there anything that you'd like to leave the audience? As we try to help people get jobs, especially college students land the jobs, internships they want. What are some final piece of advice you would give to the audience for doing that?
Yeah. So I think I have two pieces of advice. The first one is no idea, no job, no, goal is too great. As long as you have it written down and you have the steps to go forward and you have a plan of attack with the right preparation and the right effort, I think you can achieve anything, whether it's that dream job that, you never thought you would get a year ago, or whether it's, oh my goodness, I'm going to go to this investor and I have no idea what to say. As long as you have the right preparation and, you know, you understand that, hey, I'm going to throw a little bit of time into this and I really know what I'm talking about, that can really, propel you to achieve really whatever you want. And the second part to that is, of course, like with anything, if you're going to go and achieve something great, you got to get outside of your comfort zone. And for me, that was like the biggest thing, because sometimes you like sit back and you go, oh man, I'm really enjoying this right now, and life is good, but there's always something you can do to better yourself, whether that's work wise or, relationship wise outside of work, or, physically. Like, you just got to go out and every day choose something that will make yourself better. And I think that is really what has resonated in my mind. It's what, my mentors have told me, is just the more that you put yourself in uncomfortable situations, the more that uncomfortable situations will not feel uncomfortable. So that's really the big advice that I have. And yeah, just really go out, and any goal you want, any goal that you're thinking of, that, oh man, this is too much. This is like, I'm not the kind of guy who's going to get hired. I'm not the kind of guy who'd get taken seriously. With a plan of attack and with a good effort and a good mindset, I think you can do anything. So
Yeah, love that. Well, Nick, it's been a pleasure having you on with a great conversation. And in the future, if you ever want to come on, let me know. And especially as you develop in your career, I'm sure I'd love to hear about the new experiences that you've had. So yeah, again, Nick, it's been a pleasure.
yeah, thanks, David. I'm really excited to see, Job Toast and how it excels in the future, and I would love to help anytime. So just let me know.